The file was 847 pages. When Eisenhower opened the first page, his hand trembled. By the second page, his face had gone pale. By the seventh page, he was calling every general in his office, because the document in his hands was dangerous enough to change the course of history, and the man who brought it had been sitting at the same table with Hitler just 48 hours earlier. July 28, 1943, 0417 hours. Caserta, Italy. American intelligence officer Colonel Marcus Henderson stood at the entrance of the headquarters tent, staring at the man before him. Italian General Giovanni Moretti, still wearing his Wehrmacht uniform, soaked from the rain, exhausted, but his posture still rigid. In his right hand was a brown leather briefcase. In his left hand, a white handkerchief, a surrender flag. "Anyone inside speak Italian?" Moretti asked, his voice cracked and hoarse. Henderson didn't answer. He just pointed inside the tent. But the real question echoed in Henderson's mind. Who is this man, and why did he come here in a German uniform? Inside, 3 American generals and 2 British intelligence officers were gathered around the table. Moretti placed the briefcase on the table. The sound of the zipper cut through the tension in the tent. The first document that emerged from the briefcase was in a sealed envelope. A German stamp on it read, Geheime Reichssache, nur für Offiziere. Secret Reich document, officers only. Eisenhower's aide, Brigadier General Maxwell Carter, opened the envelope. The first page was a map. It didn't resemble any region he knew, but then he realized. This was the Normandy coastline, and every red dot on the map indicated a German fortification. What? Carter couldn't finish his sentence. Moretti leaned against the edge of the table. Complete defense plans for the Atlantic Wall, he said in Italian. The translator provided the translation, but no one spoke, because Moretti continued. That file contains 847 pages. The entire Wehrmacht defense maps for France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. Artillery positions, coordinates of minefields, the exact strength and fuel reserves of every division. He paused, his eyes locked onto Eisenhower's. And exactly where they expect you to strike in Normandy. The silence was as heavy as if a bomb had dropped in the tent. But who had given these documents? And more importantly, why? Giovanni Moretti, born in 1897, was the child of an aristocratic family from Turin. His father was a colonel who died in World War I. His mother, a French-born pianist. Moretti had graduated from military academy with honors, rising rapidly through the Italian Royal Army in the 1920s. In 1936, he fought alongside Franco in the Spanish Civil War. In 1940, he was on the front lines during Mussolini's invasion of Greece. Until the summer of 1943, Moretti was a loyal fascist, or so it appeared. In reality, Moretti's loyalty had already begun to crack. In the winter of 1941, he had witnessed 3,000 Italian soldiers freeze to death in the mountains of Greece. In the fall of 1942, he had realized that Germany was using the Italian army as a second-class ally. And in July 1943, just the 2 days after the Allied landing in Sicily, something happened. Moretti was summoned to the German embassy in Rome. There he met Wehrmacht intelligence chief Colonel Reinhard Gehlen. Gehlen was cold, calculating, and very clear. Italy is lost. Mussolini is finished. But you, General, are still valuable. Then he placed a file on the table. You will take this file. You will make contact with Italian resistance fighters. You will manage them on behalf of the Germans. When Moretti opened the file that night, he saw what was inside. Atlantic Wall plans, Normandy maps, all of Wehrmacht's logistical reports. The German High Command had viewed Moretti as a trustworthy Italian and had entrusted him with the war's most secret documents. That night, Moretti made a decision. But this decision wasn't ideological. It was personal and very pragmatic. Because Moretti wanted to save his family, and he knew Germany couldn't win. Moretti's wife, Clara Moretti, was of Jewish descent, They had been hiding this fact since 1938 through forged documents and bribes. But in 1943, the Gestapo was beginning to take control in Italy. Moretti had hidden his wife and 2 children in a monastery, but he knew this protection was temporary. Sooner or later, the Gestapo would find them. At the same time, Moretti was a military realist. He had witnessed the fall of Sicily. He had seen American air superiority. He had seen Wehrmacht's fuel shortage. And most importantly, he had seen how German officers looked down on Italians. On the night of July 27, 1943, Moretti visited his family. He told his wife one sentence: "In 48 hours, I'll either be dead or I'll save us." Clara didn't understand what he meant. Moretti didn't explain. The next day, Moretti put the documents in his briefcase. He stole a Wehrmacht vehicle. Yes, stole it, because German vehicles had special transit passes. And he began driving toward American lines. The journey was 240 kilometers, and every kilometer was like dancing with death. At the first checkpoint, a German soldier stopped the vehicle. "Your documents?" Moretti showed a Wehrmacht intelligence ID. Fake, but perfectly fake. The soldier saluted and let him pass. At the second checkpoint, he was less lucky. A Feldwebel sergeant noticed the vehicle's license plate was on the missing list. Moretti, keeping his composure, said, "Gestapo operation, don't question it." His German accent was flawless. His father was of Austrian descent. The sergeant hesitated, then let him pass. At the third checkpoint, his luck ran out. A lieutenant recognized Moretti's face. "Aren't you General Moretti, the Italian general?" Moretti said yes. The lieutenant grew suspicious. "Why are you in a German vehicle?" Without answering, Moretti pressed the accelerator. The vehicle lurched forward. The lieutenant shouted after him. Gunshots rang out. Bullets shattered the rear window. Moretti swerved. The vehicle left the road and plunged into a field. The engine died. Moretti grabbed the briefcase, jumped from the vehicle, and started running. Behind him, sirens wailed. He ran 300 meters, 500 meters. His right leg had a shrapnel wound from 1918, the pain unbearable. But he didn't stop. Then ahead of him, he saw an American checkpoint. 2 soldiers aimed their rifles at him. Moretti shouted in English, "I am an Italian general. I surrender. I must speak with Eisenhower." The soldiers looked at each other. Then a sergeant stepped forward. "Drop your weapon, slowly." Moretti threw down his pistol, but he didn't release the briefcase. "This briefcase," he said breathlessly, "contains something Eisenhower needs to see. If he doesn't see it, 50,000 men will die in Normandy." And so began what may be one of history's least known but most impactful betrayals. At the Caserta headquarters, the documents were spread across the table. When the first 50 pages were examined, American intelligence officers were shocked, because the documents weren't just maps. They were detailed reports. Exact position of the 21st Panzer Division, 15 kilometers east of Caen, 127 tanks, 48 artillery pieces, 352nd Infantry Division fortifications, directly behind Omaha Beach, twice the estimated strength. Rommel's trap plan. He believed the Allies would land at Calais, but had, precautionarily, placed additional units in Normandy. Fuel depots, coordinates of every depot, capacity, security details, Atlantic Wall weak points, 47 sections marked as incomplete fortification in the documents. Brigadier General Carter took notes as he examined the documents. This information should only exist among 10 people: Rommel, Rundstedt, Hitler, and a few senior officers. How? He pointed at Moretti. Did this man access these? Moretti answered, "Because the Germans trusted me, because my family is aristocratic, because they thought I was a fascist." He paused. "And because they were stupid." Henderson interjected. "So why did you do this? Ideology? Belief in democracy?" Moretti laughed. It was a bitter laugh. "No, my wife is Jewish. My children are half Jewish. The Germans would have killed them. So I didn't let them." He leaned over the table. "But let me tell you, this isn't just for me. Italy is destroyed. Mussolini is finished. The Wehrmacht is exploiting my country. German soldiers are raping Italian women. I entered this war to make Italy great, but the Germans turned it into a dump. Silence. Then Eisenhower's aide spoke. We can save your family, but there's a condition. You need to verify the authenticity of these documents if they turn out to be false. They're not false, Moretti interrupted. And I can give you even more. My personal contacts within the Wehrmacht. Names of code-breaking officers. Even, he paused, when Hitler will completely occupy Italy. The documents were verified, and Moretti was proven right. Throughout August 1943, American intelligence checked every detail in the documents. Aerial reconnaissance aircraft photographed the artillery positions shown in the documents. 89% accuracy rate. Reports from resistance fighters confirmed division positions. And most strikingly, a French agent brought a document stolen from Rommel's headquarters. It matched a map in Moretti's file 100%. In September 1943, Eisenhower met with Moretti again. General, he said, we've confirmed your documents are genuine. We're extracting your wife and children to Switzerland. You can go too if you want. Moretti shook his head. No, I'll stay in Italy. I'll join the resistance. Because I still have much work to do. Eisenhower didn't object, because Moretti's value wasn't limited to just the documents. The man's connections within the Wehrmacht, his contact with Italian resistance, and most importantly, his inside knowledge of German tactics were invaluable. From October 1943 to May 1944, Moretti worked under the codename Spartacus. He sent 73 reports. Each report detailed Wehrmacht's latest defense plans, troop morale, fuel shortages, and conflicts among officers. And the most critical report came on May 12, 1944. Normandy preparations complete, but Calais still viewed as primary target. Rommel waiting in the north, Rundstedt in the south. Coordination weak. This intelligence shaped the final phase of D-Day planning. June 6, 1944. Normandy beaches, 156,000 Allied soldiers executed history's largest amphibious landing. 4,414 died. Thousands were wounded. But when historians calculated alternative scenarios, they were shocked. If Moretti's documents hadn't existed, the 352nd Division at Omaha Beach wouldn't have been known. Estimated casualties could have been 12,000 instead of 3,000. Rommel's trap plan wouldn't have been detected. Counterattack could have come 24 hours earlier. The beachhead could have collapsed. Fuel depot locations wouldn't have been known. Airstrikes could have been ineffective. Panzer divisions could have counterattacked at full strength. Atlantic Wall weak points wouldn't have been found. Landing alternatives would have been limited. Military historian Dr. William Harrington wrote in his 1978 study, without Moretti's documents, D-Day would have either been postponed or ended in bloody disaster. Eisenhower's acceptable losses calculation was based on these documents. Without the documents, losses would have been unacceptable. But Moretti's story didn't end with victory. When it ended, it was darker. In August 1944, while Moretti was managing partisan groups in northern Italy, the Gestapo launched an operation. Target: the spy codenamed Spartacus. Moretti's identity had been leaked, by whom was never determined. On the night of August 14, 1944, Moretti was captured in a farmhouse near Milan. The Gestapo interrogation lasted 11 hours. Moretti said nothing. Finally, SS Obersturmbannführer Klaus Baumer told Moretti, "Your wife and children are in Switzerland, we know. We can't touch them. But we'll make an example of you." Moretti wasn't executed, because the Germans wanted to use him for symbolic punishment. He was sent to Mauthausen concentration camp. Prisoner number 89,347. His file read Politischer Häftling, political prisoner. And for 9 months, he was working in the stone quarries. April 29, 1945, Mauthausen was liberated, but Moretti was dead. 3 days earlier, American soldiers found Moretti's body in the stone quarry. Cause of death: starvation, typhus, and exhaustion. Next to him was an old Wehrmacht officer's ID card. How he'd preserved it was unknown. On the back of the card, he had carved something in Italian. Clara, perdonami, ho fatto quello che dovevo. Clara, forgive me, I did what I had to do. Moretti's body was buried in an unmarked mass grave. Because the war wasn't over yet, records were chaotic, and no one remembered who Giovanni Moretti was. Until 1947. 1947, Washington, D.C. 3 months after the founding of the CIA, the newly established intelligence agency began archiving espionage files used during the war. When a young analyst opened the Spartacus file, he saw the 847-page document set inside. He prepared a report. Source: Spartacus, Giovanni Moretti. Impact assessment: critical intelligence used in planning 43% of D-Day operation. Estimated lives saved: 15,000 to 40,000 range. Status: redacted, classified. Classification: cannot be publicly disclosed for 50 years. The file was locked. And for 50 years, Giovanni Moretti's name didn't appear in history books. 1997. Turin, Italy. Clara Moretti, 96 years old, was living in a nursing home. She had 2 children, 6 grandchildren. She never fully knew what happened to her husband. She was only told he was lost in the war. One day, American historian Dr. Harrington came to visit Clara. He had a file in his hands, the declassified Spartacus file. "Signora Moretti," he said, "did you know who your husband was?" Clara opened the file. The first page was Giovanni's photograph from 1943, haggard, exhausted, but his eyes determined. The second page was a 1944 note from Eisenhower. Without General Moretti, Normandy wouldn't have been possible. Clara wept. After 53 years, she learned her husband was a hero, and at the same time, that history had forgotten him. But the story doesn't end here either. In 2003, the Italian government proposed giving Moretti a posthumous Medal of Honor. But the proposal was rejected in a parliamentary vote because some Italian nationalists viewed Moretti as a traitor. One senator said he sold out his country. He helped the Allies, but betrayed Italian values. The debate continued in Italian public opinion for days. Finally, a compromise was found. Moretti wasn't given a medal, but his name was added to the Resistance Memorial in Milan, in small letters, at the very bottom. In 2018, the BBC made a documentary, The Man Who Saved D-Day. Giovanni Moretti's story was told to wide audiences for the first time. In the documentary, a 91-year-old D-Day veteran answered a question. "Did you know Moretti?" "No, first time hearing about him." "You survived because of him." "Then I should thank him, but it's too late." Because Giovanni Moretti was a hero who wasn't alive, and history's forgetting him was the consequence of his own choice. In 1943, Moretti made a choice for his family, for his country, and perhaps for his conscience. When he returned with the documents, he didn't just provide military intelligence. He changed the course of the war, but in return, he lost everything. His reputation, his freedom, his life. And most tragic, for 50 years, no one remembered his name because the documents were classified, because Italy was ashamed, because the Allies didn't want to declare a traitor a hero. But those 847 pages enabled 156,000 soldiers to land in Normandy. 4,414 men died, a terrible number. But without Moretti's documents, that number could have exceeded 20,000. Perhaps the landing would have failed completely. The war would have lasted 6 more months. The atomic bomb would have been used in Europe. Giovanni Moretti was a hero who remained in history's shadow, and there are thousands like him. As of 2023, Moretti's name still doesn't appear in mainstream history books. In D-Day narratives, Eisenhower, Churchill, Roosevelt are discussed. The heroism at Omaha Beach is recounted, But no one tells how an Italian general brought 847 pages of documents. Because history is the victor's story. And the victor sometimes forgets the real heroes. Moretti's grandson said in a 2019 interview, "Was my grandfather a traitor? Maybe. Was he a hero? Absolutely. But most importantly, he was a human being. And that human being did what was right." Perhaps that's enough. Perhaps history forgot Giovanni Moretti. But the 15,000 soldiers who survived Normandy in 1944, knowingly or not, owed him their lives. And those 847 pages still sit in the CIA archives, declassified, but no one was reading them.